Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining. This is the 16th Los Angeles Secretary Virtual User Group.
Correct.
So in this user group, we'll spend the first about 20 to 30 minutes catching you guys up, if you haven't read the blogs yet, on some of the highlights that we thought that were worthy noting that came out of the SUGCON in Malaga in Europe. That took place on the 23rd, 24th of March, so just a few weeks ago. And then we'll get into the DAM maturity session with Tiffany, and then take a look at how we can shortcut to headless migration with Headless SXA with Martin. So, Martin, I'll go ahead and pass it on to you to kick us off.
I believe you all see my screen so far.
Yep.
Give it a shot. Yeah, that's a nice venue in Malaga, probably inherited from Romans. All right, so we'll try to talk you through all the things and insights which we get at SUGCON. There will be a lot of uncompiled information, but we'll try to do the best of us. Okay, first of all, there will be 10.4 version. It's planned. People are working on it, and we even know the roadmap for this version. So sooner or later, you guys get it. Those who like it to be Sideco MVP, they will get it at least 1 month prior to the public release. But that's the big thing. So another thing is that Sideco is seriously considering migration journey. So there's lots of frustration currently with this new SaaS product and existing XP platform, and people don't know how do we jump on, what do we do? And there is also the whole roadmap they're working. And from my side, I can say there will be migration even from XDB to CDP. And I believe it will be done by using Connect. And from what we know so far, it's only basic provisional information. You will be able to migrate your contacts, obviously, because the main purpose of doing this exercise, you will be able to migrate your lists. But speaking about interactions, that's not for sure, and that's unlikely to happen. Next.js will be game changer in Sideco ecosystem. Well, it's already there. It's already game changer. We can do all the levels of wild stack, all levels of wilderness of Jamstack. So I will be talking through it in more details in my part of presentation, what you can do, especially with the Versal, middleware, edge functions, all these bits. Security is a big player now. That's Vasiliy, I know that's your topic. That was key of your presentation at SUGCON. And I can tell you just a bit example of security. If you do a minor loss or outage, that may ruin your whole reputation for your whole organization. That's a pain. Like a good example, if you have Experience Edge today, in order to connect to Experience Edge, you have to use GraphQL API, so the content is not publicly available. However, you should use it from your Next.js application, not from your browser JavaScript code, because as soon as you put it there, it becomes available from DevTools, and you are actually given the key to all your visitors to your data storage. That's no. And that's just one example. There's lots of things like that.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things, that my session was on security, and one of the biggest things I think to think about with composable is we're pulling everything out of the XM cloud, right? So our solutions on XP right now would have various types of jobs that would run on schedule, various types of business processing, APIs, custom APIs built on top of XP, right? And that all lives in XP. Now that will have to be pulled out. And as we pull those things out, if we follow best practices, we'll probably split them into separate instances and separate functions. So now the attack surface went from a single Sideco instance to exponentially blowing up in multiple attack surfaces, right? So the security topic has grown exponentially.
And those of you who are on the marketer side, I know plenty of you on this call, please make a note about that, because This is one of the important things you need to talk to your client straight away. If you're exposed to a client, talk about, use the risk language and use security language to talk your client through. This is important, and this is how you build a trust from day one. If client understand you care of securities, they will trust you more. And read the next one. SiteCo XM Cloud also offers a feature called SiteCo Container Deployment, which can make it easier to deploy custom .NET extensions. With this feature, you can package your custom .NET extensions into container image and deploy it to SiteCo XM Cloud environment. So this sounds to me like init containers, but I know it's something different. The one thing I can tell you from attending a session about how to use your own modules with XM Cloud is the very proposed way is to use NuGet packages. And this is alternative way, but at least for the moment, we have two different ways how you can manage your custom modules with XM Cloud. Of course, given that it's architecturally compatible with XM Cloud, because if your module relies on content delivery, there's no chance you would make it work.
Yep. Mark, you go back for just a second. I'm going to highlight that QR code on the right side. So guys from Horizontal presented at SUGCON, and they put a pretty good presentation together on how to ramp up on composable development if you're used to working in the XP environment, right? As a backend developer in XP, how do you ramp yourself self up for the composable future? So scan that QR code, it'll link out to GitHub where they have the PDF of the presentation posted with links to learning material and some goodies there as well.
Oh.
So credit to the Horizontal guys for this one.
All right, go ahead.
Got a general question.
Yeah.
So I understand we can patch the XM Cloud, the CM, right? The CM environment.
That's
so
correct.
I'm just thinking of use cases here. So I take it, if you want to alter like the SiteCo editor, adding a button,
yes.
Whatever, that's simple enough, right? How about things like computed fields, or
no?
Does that still no? Okay.
No. I will talk you through in my part of presentation about what exactly you can do with patching. I will show actually one example of what I patched in XM Cloud for my own simplicity. But to answer your question straight away, you will not be able to do computed fields because computed fields is custom search for your sites. That's not available because this is something happened on content delivery. We still have Solr indexes, but these are reserved for internal usage of your XM Cloud instance. So basically, if you go to content editor, it will be powered by master database, which will have master index underneath. And that works. That's how it works. It's internal Solr, but you won't be able to use it for your customizations. But keep patient in maybe an hour, I will show you exact use case.
Okay.
Right.
Thanks. With so in general, I mean, XM Cloud stand up 3, right? Behind the scenes. We can still patch whatever we want. For now, SiteCo is surprisingly lenient on things. Right now, they will start locking things down. So in theory, you could still customize like the editor experience in terms of computer fields, you probably, so to a point, but that's very risky. For site search though, just like Martin said, it's, the search is out, it's going to be outside of the platform. So if it comes to, let's say, if we're talking in the context of Sitecore search, there is a way to do computed fields with JavaScript. And
that's again something I'm going to show you as a part of my presentation, all the level of craziness you can do with XM Cloud. But let's keep patient.
Can't wait.
And now we have XM Cloud Forms. It's not something that get released, but this is coming in the form of promise. So we will get composable form solution at some stage that we will be able to use with XM Cloud. So it will be like a standalone application. And here are the features they promise. Again, drag and drop as we usually used to have it. Trigger user journeys, I think that would be in some sort of webhook, way of webhook. Forms that you will be able to inject to any front end. And I will also show you one great example how to use forms from version 10 with your XM Cloud. Not the best way of usage, but still doable. The next topic is which CMS should I choose? And we have now XM Cloud, we have Content Hub One. I did write article about both of them in the beginning of the year. I gave a full review for Content Hub One with its limited capabilities. So it's just a pure, raw, headless CMS. You keep the content there, you keep images. If you want to hack it around, as I did, you can also put videos, archives, all these crazy things, but it's not supported and it's not recommended to do. Well, however, there are limitations. You are limited 70 megabytes per image. So that's your capacity. Still doable. There was a presentation at SUGCON demonstrating how the guys from German Sitecore user group changed and built their website for storing content in Content Hub One, and it was pretty impressive. They made Next.js head application for it, and they are using Content Hub One. At the same time, XM Cloud is a flagship product. It's a proper CMS. It's properly done. It's properly built. It's what we have with our XP, of course, cut over, but still you will get all the familiar interfaces and same editing experience. And of course, it comes with personalization and built-in analytics straight out of the box. So migration path is something that I will cover separately in my presentation, but generally, as I said, Sitecore thinking about that. There was a big shout for Sitecore Connect on this session. And for those who don't know, Sitecore Connect is the tool that allows you to plug one Sitecore product to one non-Sitecore product. So, I mean, non-Sitecore, I mean composable one. You will be able to plug one non-composable product to one composable product. That's it. Those two composable products are supposed to get this connection between themselves built in with time. So, like we can see now with Content Hub shown up next to XM Cloud on this universal identity portal. Something similar under the hood should be done. For example, Content Hub is it has connector for XM Cloud out of the box in a base image in your cloud, but you need to enable it. But for external things, you will have it. It's not free. You have to pay. It's done in the form of recipes. So, like recipe is how to explain it better. It's basically a ready-to-use connector between two systems, which you integrate. And as I remember, there was a fair policy of 3 million connections. But I need to refer to the exact slide. I cannot say it out of my mind.
Yeah, so there are a couple other interesting things about this one. So Sitecore Connect, as you guys may know, it's Workato white label. Right, so it's Workato behind the scenes. Correct. Workato is one of the leaders and actual leaders in the leader quadrant of Gartner for data exchange systems. The recent quadrant just came out. You can actually sign up for Workato and play around with it yourself. You don't have to go through Sitecore Connect. What Sitecore Connect does is it grabs the Workato, which is the low code, no code, right? Point and click type of configuration WYSIWYG for integrations, and which has hundreds, over 1,000 integrations, connectors into the common tools, and it plugs Sitecore tools in it. So that's what is Sitecore Connect. So Sitecore Connect establishes the recipes, the connectors to Workato for Sitecore tools, and then from there, you know, you're free to use any of the Workato connectors moving forward. One of the questions I commonly get is, does that mean it's the end of custom integration work? Not really. Workato and Sitecore Connect replace non-performance sensitive integrations. So jobs that have to run on schedule, sync jobs, anything that's performance sensitive time sensitive, has to be done in near real time or in real time, that would still need to be built out in custom.
That's important clarification. I missed out. I can keep scrolling the slides, Vasiliy, if you want to keep me doing that.
I can take over. Actually, it looks like there's a question. Hold on, let's see. XM Cloud comes with a built-in personalization, but I guess that might be limited, isn't it? That's why there is a separate SiteGround CDP personalization product. Correct. So SiteGround XM Cloud comes with only 14 personalization rules. Only 14. It's a mix of session-based personalization, so personalization based on user activity during that visit. I think there are like one or few rules based on historical data. So
number of visits. I'll take you through that.
There you go.
Session. I have it all.
Perfect. Let me share my screen real quick, and we'll continue. So let me know if you can see the SiteGround Search slide.
Yes.
Excellent.
Yes.
So SiteGround Search is a relatively new product. If you guys haven't heard, was released earlier this year. It is a search product built based on Discover, or what is based on Reflection, the commerce search and recommendation AI-based tool that was acquired by SiteGround. Was rebranded as Discover, and now that was the same. It's the same technology, same types of tools at a high level. If you want to think about it, it's, with stripped out commerce functionality, commerce-related functionality is now powering SiteGround Search. It is a relatively new tool on the block. However, it's actually pretty competitive. We did a recent analysis of SiteGround Search relative to Coveo, Algolia, search stacks, and it actually stood out. So the price is relatively attractive, especially compared to Coveo. When we start talking about AI, Coveo has unfortunately lost a lot of ground because the Coveo connector has lost its value. It's not applicable to XM Cloud anymore, right? So the Coveo connector that we're all used to, that writes to the XDB, uses data from the XDB for personalization and so forth. So all that massive value, unfortunately, won't be applicable to XM Cloud scenarios.
Vasiliy, this is a political background for Coveo. I can talk you more about that. So it's not just a technical issue. There is a political background why this technical issue came to.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm actually surprised. And this may have to do with the new composable story, right? The composability aspect of things. When SiteGround, I remember, came out with Experience Commerce XC, right? So they canceled all their partnerships with all the commerce platforms. So I'm sure there's going to be, a little bit of that happening in the space. But nonetheless, so we looked at Algolia. Algolia obviously has great AI supporting the search engine. It is almost like a go-to search engine for composable headless implementations. However, one of the big drawbacks of Coveo that our team found was that it didn't support PDF crawling. It only crawled metadata of the files. It didn't crawl the actual content of the file, where SiteGround Search does. So it is an interesting contender. It is still in its infancy stages. Obviously, there's little support for developers. For instance, there is an SDK if you're a developer for Discover. There is no SDK for SiteGround Search. Here on the slide, you can see a few ways in which SiteGround Search can crawl the website. In fact, the initial setup is done currently by the SiteGround SaaS ops team. So given the URL, given the parameters, they set everything up and it just crawls. So we can control the frequency of the crawl, how quickly we want to recrawl our pages. Crawling performance is outstanding, light years ahead of what we see in an XP in terms of speed of crawling pages, number of pages. So that's not going to be an issue. We can recrawl probably the entire site in several minutes. It's a massive improvement. So I don't have the speed off the top of my head, but it was what we heard. Some of the KPIs that we got were just light years of what we're used to with, let's say, Solar and XP, for instance. And so it just, because it's a separate system, uses separate technology. So can crawl a sitemap URL, can crawl a list of URLs. If we pass it on to it, we can also push data in it. Main to your question, we can do computed fields internally. We can do some post actions in Sitecore search to massage the data. So there's a lot of flexibility that comes with the platform. But it does come with some shortcomings. So shaky UI, it is a bit shaking. The initial early versions that we saw still had references to commerce context, even documentation. I'm not going to go through all these in detail, but you can kind of take a look at it. These are self-explanatory. I've already talked about the SDKs for developers. Benefits, it is definitely flexible. It is highly configurable. We've gone through a list of features with the Sitecore team, and it's everything from boosting the rules that we're used to in the Sitecore space, right, to AI support, to recommendations, to autocorrect, to fuzzy search, to AI support, even all manual overrides with recipes internally. So there's quite a bit of configuration that's available to us. Insights analytics, pretty robust. Split testing functionality. I think the only thing that it's missing really is just the SDK, but it's relatively straightforward for a developer to call the API.
Any limitations?
What's that?
Limitations. Are there any limitations?
Limitations. So document crawling, PDFs only. I think there's some limitations in tuning the fuzziness of search. So if you're familiar with Solr, you can specify how fuzzy you want your fuzzy search to be, how much, the margin of error that you're willing to accept. I think there's some limitations.
We can do faceting, I assume?
Faceting is available.
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
I have example of faceting. If you take a look at GE website, which is actually built on Exam Cloud with Sitecore Search, and it was presented at Symposium last year, that already had search with faceting, and it was quite impressive level of faceting.
In fact, the Sitecore Search,
Nice.
I think on the Sitecore site is built using Sitecore Search.
That's correct.
So yeah, you can totally play around with it. Look at the source code and see what's going on. If you work for a partner, a Sitecore partner, you can request a sandbox if you have a case. So work through partner enablement for that one.
Out of curiosity, are they using Solr behind the
No.
scenes?
Elasticsearch.
Elastic, yeah.
Elasticsearch.
Okay.
You don't deal with Elasticsearch yourself. It's under a couple levels of abstraction hidden from you, but underneath they do use it.
Yep. Yeah, there's all kinds of goodies that are on top of Elasticsearch, like AI, for instance, right? So AI works based on your web activity. So you drop a pixel on your site, it monitors the things that you click on, and then provides recommendations. It also provides Q&A. That's an interesting one. Q&A. So you can ask a question in search, and it'll give you an answer. So that's an interesting one. It also provides content recommendations. So there's a recommendations API. In fact, I think the search API itself is called Search and Recommendation API. So it can also provide recommend pieces of content that are relevant.
I believe this comes from Discover, which is some sort of recommendation engine for the commerce.
Yep.
That's where recommendations are coming from.
Exactly. If you work with Discover, I think it's almost a replica of a lot of functionality, just minus commerce context. So moving right along, Content Hub 1. So here's the roadmap. So Content Hub 1, if you haven't seen it, so it's a relatively, also again, a new product, relatively basic in functionality. It's based on the premise of the headless CMS, meant to compete with likes of Contentful, Strapi, Content Stack. Obviously, it's in terms of functionality, in terms of the scope of support, it
Did we lose Vasiliy?
We lost Vasiliy.
Hey, can you guys hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, 1 second. My power just cut out for a second. Hold on. I'll be right back in a couple of seconds.
Functionality. It has very interesting user interface. It's very modern user interface. It's powered by webhooks, I believe, internally, so it's very much asynchronous. The set of functions, as I said, you can only create templates which you will be built content from. You can upload images, and only I think four types of images were available in January when I take a play with it. At the same time, building content with Content Hub 1 is pretty fast. It's like very fast. So I built this demo site of my whiskey collection presented by the cat I showed you in the beginning of the session. So I built it like in a couple of hours. The only challenge is rich text field, which comes from headless side as like a set of like a JSON structure. So this is correct way of presenting rich text, so they don't have to do some sort of rendering formatting for you. It's your liability, it's liability of your head application to make it happen. But if you don't use SDK, which was not in place by the time I played around it, you have to implement it yourself, which took me like 1 hour maybe to build my own rich text renderer for my headless site. And that's it. Vasiliy, you're on mute.
You're on mute, Vasiliy.
Am I showing on mute?
Now it's okay.
Okay, hold on. Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Can you see the screen?
Mm-hmm.
All right, we're back in business. Okay, thanks for covering, Martin. So as you can see, some of the basic things are on the roadmap still, right? Workflows, localization, validation, support for various types of fields, media, manipulation type APIs. What's encouraging is that the roadmap seems to move pretty quickly, right? So with this being a SaaS product, things are going to move a lot faster. Content Hub is now a proper SaaS product, fully SaaS. So things are going to move on that front as well a lot faster moving forward. So, but I mean, these are just the highlights, right? These are the highlights worth noting. There's a lot more that was covered in the SUGCON. So if you guys can scan these QR codes, it'll take you to a couple of blog posts by Adam Seabridge, who described in a lot of detail with a lot of screenshots of slides some of the most interesting sessions during SUGCON. So if you'd like to learn more about what was covered, scan the QR codes, read through the blog post. The recordings of SUGCON sessions will be posted as usually right later down the road, and I'll be sharing the presentation from my side around security, and Martin will show the presentation here in this session. Before we jump on, there's one more thing that I wanted to share with you guys, and this was something that was that Scott Hanselman, who remoted in, so he did a video, a remote session at SUGCON, and he talked about some interesting things there. One of the most interesting things here you see on a slide is sharing your experiences and not wasting your keystrokes. I thought that was very relevant in our context, especially for those who are aspiring to become MVPs. Sharing, not wasting your keystrokes specifically. That's something that got me thinking. And what Scott talked about is something that he started doing himself a while back. He noticed himself getting emails from clients and coworkers and other third parties with questions a lot about Microsoft products and services, and et cetera. And he found himself writing lengthy explanations and walking people through how certain things work over email. Well, what he realized is that was a relative waste of keystrokes for him, because once that email went out. No one else saw it but the recipient. And he really usually got like a quick thanks or, oh, that makes sense, right? So there was a lot of effort put into creating that content, but that content was only exposed to limited audience. In a lot of cases, just one person who asked the question, right? So what he started doing, this is interesting, is whenever he got a question, he thought would take a good amount of explanation, he would actually write out an explanation on his blog and then reply back to the email with a link to that blog post. So think about this one. That certainly got me thinking. So if you're aspiring to become a Sitecore MVP, especially, or if you have the knowledge that let's say that's not available online, and that's generally what usually people ask about, right? If they can't get something from a quick Google, then they'll reach out to you as a specialist or an expert in a certain field with a question. So there's a good chance that information isn't readily available through Google. So putting that out, even if it's just a few paragraphs and just sharing a link, won't only answer the question, but will also save that information for the rest of the folks that may have the same question out there, right? So, and if you're aspiring MVP, that's a good way to put a lot of knowledge out there quickly, right? Just a few paragraphs here and there, maybe every other day, that'll ramp up your content collection pretty fast. So, of course, needless to mention that the rest of the points are also important, but that one really got me thinking.
I'll do it for ages already. And
what's that?
I'll do it for ages. Everything you do like that gets indexed by search engine. And it may help unbelievable amount of people. Like I did some posts, quite random posts on SXA, mostly just to demo out to my end client something. And I get random people just occasionally writing me feedback after ages saying, whoa, that walkthrough was so helpful. I even forget I did something, but they write feedback. And typically it's less than 1% of people are coming back with the feedback. So I believe the number is much more of who benefit from things I've done.
Yep.
That really motivates.
Definitely. If you get a chance, look up Scott's websites and blogs. He was scrolling through the list of blogs. It has to be hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. Same thing.
Thousands.
If not thousands. It's just he was just scrolling there for a while, and he did the same thing with his podcast. An interesting trick he used when said instead of again kind of doing video webinars, he would actually invite people. If someone asked him a question interesting, he would just then invite them to discuss something like that over instead of meeting with someone. Again, not in this case, it's not about keystrokes, but it's about your time. Instead of meeting with someone, rather having a phone call, why not have a podcast on that topic?
His approach is if he asks someone, can I borrow your mind for a minute? Usually people would not reply positively, especially to stranger, but asking that person for attending the webinar on a subject matter definitely brings some interest, and he can ask the same question, which will be shared. I was amazed by Scott Hanselman's speech. I know this person for probably at least 2 decades. He was an inspire for all of us who were grown as .NET developers because he used to work for Microsoft by this time. But what impressed me most of all, how he was jumping the topics. I very much advise you to watch the video and recording. He was like a natural topics DJ, so much nicely mixing the one agenda to another that I did not even realize we jumped the topic. Unbelievable. Seriously, it's like I want to get the recording and I want to linguistically analyze it and decompose, analyze it just to become the better speaker like Scott is.
Mm-hmm. You also used an interesting tool for those. Most of us work remotely these days. I think this is also that caught my eye. What is it, OMS or something like that he mentioned? I have it in my notes, but he used an interesting presentation tool where he could move himself around the screen, enhance certain parts of the screen, just zoom in, zoom out, just a super dynamic presentation tool where it wasn't just sharing, a series of slides. So that's also an interesting one. So, anyways, so So these are some highlights from SUGCON, and gotta do the shout out to the sponsors. And again, if you work for a vendor, do support Sitecore user group conferences. There is, I think, Martin, correct me if I'm wrong, the North America SUGCON is still an option for us this year.
It is indeed, and we get some progress on the roadmap. I cannot share it at this stage because nothing yet is certain, but believe me, the team is working, and if very provisionally, there will be something by the fall of the year, and it will be likely combined with MVP Summit. So the venue is not yet certain, and other details are not yet certain. So stay tuned, and I'll definitely post. Stuck to my socials. That's the first place where you can find the truth.
Sign up.
So I want to
subscribe to Martin. Follow Martin.
Yeah, thank you. And let's move to the content. I want to introduce our first speaker. That's Tiffany Laster, and she will talk about maturity dam model. But before diving into that, I want to say my own experience. When I firstly joined Efficient, it was 5 months ago. We work in the same company. I didn't know people around there, and I just occasionally came across Tiffany speaking on our internal call about something about Content Hub. I don't remember what was that exactly, but I was so amazed, and wow, I said, whoa. And I start watching what Tiffany was doing, regardless this product, composable product, and CDP. So these are two directions, and I was so impressed that I said, like, Tiffany, I think you can do much more. Can I be your mentor? Give me this honor, please. And basically now we are in this mentorship relationship. So Tiffany will now tell us more about.
Thanks for the shout out, Martin. I appreciate it. It's been great to work with you so far. I am working for my MVP status, so I appreciate everybody letting me talk today. Super excited to kind of share some knowledge we have built in the Proficient Sitecore business unit. We've been working out building a DAM maturity model to help guide people build this kind of gold standard for Content Hub DAM and what it should look like in your MarTech stack. So just an overview of what we'll kind of be covering today. We'll give just a little bit about a digital asset management platform. We'll talk about the core competencies of that DAM maturity model, what a path looks like from a crawl state to a nurture state, and just some business use cases that I've ran across of, and what a lot of people kind of fail to remember. It's that this is not just an enhanced media library from Sitecore XP. It's really much, much more than that, and it creates that omni-channel distribution for assets. So to kick it off, when you're looking at whether or not a company should invest into a DAM maturity model, a lot of people might be asking, why the investment? And really it comes down to reducing costs when it comes to asset creation and distribution, and just improving workflows. And I actually pulled some stats for this particular presentation, but about 8% of an employee's workday is actually just spent searching for information and assets. And that can consume a lot of time, as you might all know, like looking for certain logos or sales information or learning materials. It can consume a lot of time. So we're trying to improve that workflow that you'll see from an internal and external basis. And then another stat that I thought was super interesting was, on average, just one office will create anywhere between like 5 to 15% of their assets, while global organizations can reach up to almost 35% of recreating assets. And those numbers may kind of seem like small and generous for the workday, but if we start breaking that out into what it actually costs a single office, those numbers start to grow. So theoretically, I know MJ doesn't like math, but we're going to do a little bit of a math problem here. So let's say an average asset costs about $500 to create, and this will cover license cost, a designer time, the approval time, the editing time, up until that publishing standpoint. And let's say that single office creates about 50 assets on a monthly basis. So that's to support their email campaigns, their website, any sales material, their social media posts. So 50 assets is pretty generous with all those channels that you're managing just from a single office standpoint. At that point, you're spending about $25,000 a month just from an asset creation standpoint. You build that out into a year, you're kind of reaching the 300,000 standpoint to cover all these costs. We're generous with that number, and we say that an office is only recreating 10% of their assets. That's still $30,000 a year just for that single office to create assets to support all their needs from a digital aspect. So you start thinking about what global organizations do, and you start scaling that number up, and they're recreating 35, you can really start saving these organizations a lot of money, and then ultimately also increasing their sales revenues when you start talking about the type of channels that the asset distribution is supporting. So this is a really, really important topic that I don't think enough companies are talking about or willing to discuss, this investment in DAM. So let's talk about those DAM benefits. So digital asset management platforms are really supposed to help support those multiple business areas that I kind of mentioned before. So your designers, your marketers, your content creators, your sales team, your educational teams, e-commerce teams if you're selling products online, and even more. So it's really meant to serve as the single source of truth, so you're not having to recreate these assets or hunt those assets down. And so by focusing on the five core competencies that we have defined within Proficient, you can really start implementing best practices and achieve some benefits that may not first come to mind when you start talking about digital asset management platforms. So enhanced workflows. So with AI and other robust integrations that Sitecore offers, such as Adobe Creative Clouds, it kind of creates that space to create, edit, collaborate, and publish edits more efficiently. You're not opening one program, downloading it, uploading it to Creative Cloud, and then uploading it to multiple channels from there. You're really able to just have that single source of truth. And then AI is already integrated with Content Hub, so it can automatically tag assets. So you're not having to pick out certain colors if they're looking for a color picture, or maybe if it needs to involve a device or a person, that automatically gets tagged when it gets uploaded to Content Hub with the integration with Microsoft Cognitive Services, excuse me. Another benefit that you can see is just improved distribution. So kind of what I just mentioned, you're easily distributing assets to multiple channels at a time, and the metadata that might be important for that channel. So when I think of website distribution, I think it needs to include that alternative text. When I think of social media, I think it needs to be faceted by maybe what channel it should be used on. So that's another way that Content Hub can help organize and distribute assets. Same thing with email service providers and your products. So you can integrate this with product inventory management systems, and it can communicate information both ways. So you're not having to manage maybe the product category or the SKU codes in two separate places. You're able to have that data streamlined between both of these systems. Another item that I like to call out is just tighter governance. So Content Hub DAM has a really flexible content data modeling system, and you can create these custom user groups to really make sure that you're locking down assets and people only have the appropriate access to either create, edit, or even distribute certain asset types. And then same thing with the digital rights management feature within Content Hub DAM. You can really take it a step further and just make sure that you're improving that asset security for users and distribution, which another benefit that you get from that is also reducing any legal costs that you might run across just from a bigger organization standpoint with any rights compliance issues. So just making sure that you're locking down assets the appropriate way. And then the reduced cost is obviously the ultimate benefit an organization wants to see. So by improving those workflows, the findability, and the reusability of assets, your company can save a lot of money on that asset creation and distribution as well. So what drives that DAM maturity model is just 5 core competencies. And how we broke that down was strategy, people, process, technology, and the impact. And all of these are really supposed to work together to create that gold standard of enterprise level of DAMs. So just looking at a strategy standpoint, this really focuses on the bird's eye view of a DAM. So why are you utilizing a DAM? What use cases does it need to support, such as your email service provider, your website, your e-commerce shop, your personalization needs? What's the asset security and governance needs? How are people finding those assets? You're kind of evaluating all of those strategy use cases and how you can make it easier to create, find, and distribute those assets. The people aspects really focuses on that user adoption and creating a knowledgeable, dedicated, cross-functional DAM team to support the DAM model. So you will, and I definitely recommend having a team internally to support this system as well. And then we have your process. So this is all about configuring those seamless workflows and ensuring that Content Hub is actually the single source of truth. And this also covers the documentation standpoint. You want a training program. You also want to make sure that you're keeping all your technical documentation up to date. And then obviously a big piece of it is the technology. So just making sure you have all those enhanced integrations to support that asset delivery while still ensuring the security is intact during that distribution. And then we have our impact. So this is consistent KPI tracking and just return on investment models that will help you define your DAM roadmap and making sure that it was worth the investment in the first place for a company. I want to take a deeper dive into each of these core competencies. So I broke this out into different competencies and for 3 different topics we'll cover. So it's the why, the goals of each competency, and some best practices that we've implemented on every single project we've been on so far. So again, the strategy is just a clear strategy for your DAM can ensure that you're leveraging all its capabilities, efficiently making enhancements through that roadmap, and then just ensuring you're meeting that you're maximizing your ROI. Some goals that you'll see is defining that metadata and data modeling, identifying the integration enhancements that the roadmap needs, outlining those KPIs, and structuring the training program to onboard users and your DAM team as well. Some best practices that we apply here is just creating short-term and long-term goals for Content Hub to improve user adoption, evaluating those analytics that you are collecting in your insights to create and build up that Content Hub roadmap. So let's say you have a sales department that you would like to onboard into Content Hub. Maybe what integrations do they need? What materials, asset types? Those are all things that you can evaluate with strategy. Identifying new feature releases to expand DAM. Obviously, Sitecore is always enhancing their products. So just making sure that you're looking and taking advantage of all those feature releases as well as something that is included in strategy. And then strategy builds into that people competency that we kind of touched on earlier. So you're wanting to create that cross-functional team that can support the DAM needs. And we'll get into the operational model here shortly as well. Any questions about strategy so far? Just want to make sure I'm not missing anything in the Zoom chat. I cannot see it as of right now.
So far, so good.
Great. Perfect. Thank you. So just taking a deeper dive into the people aspect. So why are we creating a cross-functional team to support DAM? Well, one, you want to ensure that your users have a human point of contact if they have any issues, if they need those enhancements. Content Hub DAM is obviously not going to be able to read their mind. You're going to need somebody to be able to support those enhancements. Making sure that the system is continually updated. This includes also updating asset metadata and keeping assets clean and archiving any assets that may not be utilized. 10 years from now, obviously, a picture or sales material may no longer be useful. So making sure you have something like a DAM librarian, keeping that clean will be super useful. And then just staying relevant in the tech stack. You've made the investment. You don't want to make sure, you do not want to lose any progress with your tech stack and have Content Hub DAM fall off and then have all these shadow DAMs and just get back in that same position of recreating assets, having a hard time finding assets and all those issues we kind of touched on earlier. So goals for people is to ensure support for the users, perform audits for Content Hub, and just managing the system and ensuring assets stay up to date here. Best practices that we recommend is just designating an internal product owner, having regular cadence meetings with DAM team and department ambassadors so they have a voice in the system as well. And then just having a defined point of contact for that support questions or needs. That's typically not going to be your internal product owner. It might be someone like your DAM librarian or a Content Hub developer that people can reach out to get support. But just having that one point of contact has been super useful. And again, previous engagements that we've seen with Content Hub DAM. And this is a sample of a recommended operational model. This is something that I would consider when you're scaling up into kind of a closer of a fly or nurture standpoint. So the heart of it is going to be your internal product owner. And then you're going to have a Content Hub strategist administrator. They might be evaluating analytics, looking at user insights, delivering user surveys. Again, just getting all of that feedback and ROI tracking. You're going to have Content Hub developers to make sure that the integration, scripting, role mapping, anything that needs to be taken care of can be enhanced, and also includes upgrades as well. You'll have a Content Hub DAM librarian. They're kind of usually in the weeds of updating all those assets, removing assets, making sure assets are tagged properly as well. And then typically, once you start to get to this bigger team, you're going to see like a project manager helping everybody stay on track. I did include your department leads and Content Hub team ambassadors. So these are people that are going to be utilizing the platform. So again, your sales team lead, your e-commerce team lead, you want them to have a voice if they're going to be able to utilize this platform and make sure they're getting the most bang for their buck. And of course, shout out, you can always hire a partner. If you don't have the internal skill sets or you need additional support or help through an upgrade process, you can also go to partners such as Proficient and just get supplemental strategy and dev support for your DAM as well. So the deeper dive into the process. So defining processes, guidelines, and documentation for how to properly leverage Content Hub will ultimately improve user experience and business efficiency. So the goals for this section here is just making sure that you have clear documentation regarding technical architecture and data stream between systems. The recommendation to making sure that you have like an evolving document that captures the architecture is not only to help onboard new employees, but if you're also getting supplemental help from an agency, it's much more quicker to onboard. They're not having to dig through all this code and wonder what this custom integration was, and then also anticipating any breaking features during the upgrade process. As Content Hub DAM expands and there are enhancements made, you may be able to remove some custom scripts. There may be breaking features. So just having that architectural documentation is super beneficial in that standpoint. And then the training program for new employees, users, and external counterparts to leverage DAM. This will just help jumpstart utilization, improve overall user experience so people don't get frustrated and create those shadow DAMs. So just making sure they're properly equipped to use the system as well. So best practices here is just making sure that documentation should be updated regularly when you do enhancements, any integrations, new user groups, or any upgrades are completed. And then utilizing Content Hub as a documentation source to be easily distributed is something that we've seen as a big success. So that can be even including your training documents for Content Hub, and then utilizing a pop-up window for when new users get logged on, they're actually just directed to a help page to help them learn how to search, how to upload, how to add a collection, and they're not just having to figure it out on their own. A deeper dive into the technology. So obviously by integrating the necessary technologies, companies can reduce asset costs, managing assets in multiple places, improve asset governance, reusability, and distribution is the overall why for technology. The goals here is to create an efficient upstream and downstream of assets and metadata to improve workflows. A really good example I like to use here is the e-commerce standpoint. If you need certain metadata passed through a PIM system back to Content Hub or vice versa, you're not managing that metadata in two places. It can automatically be streamed, and it'll help with tagging assets in the system as well. And then just having that central location to upload, manage, and publish assets is a really big thing. You don't want a Dropbox, a SharePoint to find different assets or sales materials. This should be the single source of truth for companies. Best practices here is scheduled enhancements and reviews to focus on new features and releases, and just enhancements submitted by people. So what I mean by that is those user surveys, those user insights that you're collecting, have that drive your roadmap. That's really going to tell you the biggest needs of the DAM system, and it's going to help you, again, just reduce cost and get that ROI that you're looking for. And then updating technical documentation is still really best practice. I find too many times we dive into engagement and we're having to figure out what script was written like on a 2.9 version of Content Hub, and it's really important to keep that documentation updated. So from an integration, some recommendations, just website is a really big channel to connect to. Adobe Creative Cloud, I mean, they don't have to even download an asset. They can just check it out. Illustrator or Photoshop will pop up, they'll make the edits, and it'll upload that asset into that same file system, or even create a new draft looking at what you're going to do. So not even having to leave Content Hub in itself is going to improve that business workflow. Same thing with Salesforce Marketing Cloud and your PIMS. Just our whole focus here is making sure that we're improving those data streams, those workflows, and overall reducing time and money spent on asset creation. And then we have our analytics. So it's really funny. I know a lot of people are like, why would we track our Content Hub damn analytics? Well, really, just by evaluating the platform performance and user adoption rate for Content Hub, you can see what you need to improve. You can also track what the asset performance impact and ultimately get that ROI. You really want to come to your leaders of your organization and be like, we saved $30,000 in just this month from Content Hub DAM, or we were able to increase sales revenue on our e-commerce site because we were pulling our assets through Personalize to XM. So there's a lot of use cases and why you should track analytics. Tracking ROI could be impact, reach, or that cost reduction that we talk about, and then evaluating that user adoption and usage rate just to make sure that people are getting onboarded appropriately to that Content Hub DAM. Best practices is leveraging custom pages in Content Hub to create graphs and charts. They do have pages that you can build external components on. You can drop graphs and charts and use those reporting logs that are already out of Content Hub. And then performing regular audits to evaluate asset platform and performance. I tend to utilize a couple of different tools. So as you can see here, obviously Content Hub allows raw audit logs and reporting logs. We've also integrated Google Analytics 4 through GTM, and we utilize Hotjar for user surveys, heat maps, and more. So there's plenty of tools that you can collect all this data for as well. And just a little bit of a breakdown, because there are two differences. There is really like an operational analytics of you're evaluating how your departments and users are actually leveraging Content Hub. So some KPIs might include uploads, total number of assets, uploads by asset type, uploads by product type, active users, search queries, average cost of asset creation, and then you have your marketing analytics, which really focuses on the reach, engagement, successful downloads, and conversions as well. Obviously, all these competencies and the effort made just doesn't happen overnight. So what it might look like for a path to this nurture state is you'll start with the crawl. So you might see that you're having multiple systems supporting asset creation and distribution. There's little to zero reporting on any asset consumption, creation, or the impact itself. No clear defined strategy of how people should create assets or upload or distribute. And you're even having difficulty with asset security and distribution. The next stage of this is once you get that jump start for Content Hub, you've defined your metadata, you've started tracking some basic analytics, you've integrated with your website. Some things you might be able to see is it's part of your asset workflow and delivery. It does support multiple internal departments for asset creation and distribution. The absolutely bare minimum necessary integrations are already implemented at this point. So things like your website or email service provider. You have defined KPIs to track utilization of Content Hub, and then you also have that dedicated internal product owner or owners to support Content Hub as well. You might not have that full-fledged team, but you have somebody internal. The run looks like Content Hub starts to build to that critical to asset workflow. So you probably have some more integrations there. And then you've seen an increased user of adoption of Content Hub as a single source of truth of assets. So again, maybe just onboarding some additional departments, external agencies, or partners that you're working with. You're starting to build out that cross-functional team consistently and meeting and starting that cadence. Internally, you have consistent reporting to drive Content Hub enhancements, and integrating with multiple delivery destinations and collaboration tools. So that might include that Adobe Creative Cloud at that point as well. I'm going to take a pause and drink some water. So the Fly really gets to that. It's a single source of truth for all asset types. You're integrated to all the platforms in your tech stack. So your website, social media channels, maybe a point of sales, Creative Cloud. You have both internal, external user adoption. You have a dedicated cross-functional team to support Content Hub needs. So that'll include that project manager, developer, a strategist, and that DAM librarian. And then you're really starting to see insights from the analytics to help inform business decisions in that Content Hub roadmap as well. And our nurture state is something that'll ever be evolving. You never really leave this state. So once you get to that single source of truth for Content Hub, you have effective and optimal delivery of assets. You're 100% committed to admin and executive buy-in. You have a fully dedicated DAM team. You have scheduled audits, maintenance, and enhancements, a part of your project team. And you have consistent KPI and impact reporting for assets and users that you can really show that you're maximizing that return on investment. So this is what we consider the best in class of DAM, or the gold standard is what we're reaching for here. We've also broken it down. So we have benchmarks for each of the competencies at different stages of the maturity as well. I'm not going to read through all of them, but each of these have benchmarks. So you have those short-term and long-term goals to achieve internally as well. But ultimately, you are really trying to get to that nurture state where you have that buy-in, maximized return on investment, and you're really seeing this part of your MarTech stack, and it's being the single source of truth of assets. And it helps when your users love it as well. So just touching again on some like ongoing best practices when you get to that nurture state, this might be something that companies look for. So ongoing site maintenance on a weekly basis, you might be going in and adding missing metadata if it wasn't uploaded right, deleting duplicate files. On a monthly basis, you're looking at asset usage, archiving unused and outdated files. And from quarterly, I really like to go back and review any user roles and permissions, who can be removed from the system, and just making sure we're optimizing that security as well. Regular content and user audits. Quarterly, you should be delivering user surveys to internal and external teams for more insights on the Content Hub experience itself. Again, that is supposed to drive that Content Hub roadmap. On a monthly basis, you're reviewing those metrics. The whole entire DAM team should have a meeting. You'll look at downloads, uploads, user statistics, search queries. This might help you define metadata that might be missing. If you see search queries that aren't showing any results, it also might identify new assets that you need to be building. So it's really starting to drive those business decisions as well internally. So then we have our action based on analytics and new releases. So this is that ongoing standpoint, that nurture state. You're going to adjust the roadmap to include any enhancements from those user insights that you do on a quarterly basis. Ongoing, you're going to check for new release features on Sitecore sites and or partner sites. I know that we try to actively communicate to clients when we see a new release. And then ongoing, you're just working with design team to fill gaps in assets. So again, if you're seeing that a search query is not showing any results, or you're seeing that a particular department needs a new asset type, you're just making sure that you're building those gaps as needed. So I would love to cover just some potential use cases, again, from what I've seen with the projects we've been on within Proficient. So very simple one is supporting that content distribution. So it includes the start to finish workflow for asset creation, collaboration, management, and distribution. You're not just uploading final assets and calling it done. You're really starting the whole process right from the Content Hub standpoint. Asset delivery should include multiple channels, what's in your tech stack. And then metadata should include campaign metadata, alt text, asset type, areas of use. This also can include some things like e-commerce, your personalization metadata, and to help drive some of that logic. We'll touch on it here in a little bit. So one thing I did want to call out is we've actually just are wrapping up a really cool project that we were able to leverage Content Hub DAM, Coveo, and Sitecore XM all together. So the challenge here was the client needed to surface documents, resources, and training materials and other assets to authenticated and authenticated members on sites. So the catch-22 here was we were needing to secure public links as well on top of indexing documents from Content Hub. So the solution ended up being Content Hub integrated with Coveo and Sitecore XM to help create new secured public links when it was delivered to XM. And it was also still crawling Content Hub for all the necessary metadata. So it would pull the first API would actually pull the asset ID. The second call pulled the public link, and the third call would decide whether it was public or secured. And then Sitecore would generate that new secured URL and then also deliver all the metadata to help surface through the Coveo UI as well. So I want to give a huge shout out to my team members, Roberto and Topaz. They did a lot of work around the solution and making this happen for this client. So big kudos to them. Link for their LinkedIns are actually down below if we end up delivering this deck. So supporting e-commerce. So by connecting to a PIM or POS, assets can be managed in one central location to help keep the most up-to-date brand shots, product shots, and resources available for your e-commerce needs. This integration should include upstream and downstreaming information between the two systems, so you're not having to manage it in two places. So that includes SKUs, product brands, product type, brands, prices, and more, just depending on your business needs to help users search, filter, and deliver necessary information to all systems. Another cool use case we're seeing is supporting personalization efforts with Sitecore Personalize and Content Hub DAM. So by connecting Sitecore Personalize and Content Hub DAM, you're still managing assets in one central location. Assets can be placed in offers as an attribute, so you can use that Content Hub URL, or you can even build logic out in the decision models based on certain metadata to serve up certain images. So a really good example of this is maybe some products. If you have them tagged under certain product types, brands, and you build that logic in that decision model that says, you know, they've been checking out this brand, these are the images you need to pull, or these are the types of images you need to pull. Personalized has that logic, and the metadata is built out in Content Hub DAM, so you're not having to manually select the image every single time. Supporting your sales team. So having central location for your sales team to find the most updated information regarding services, maybe your brands or products you may offer, is the best and great way to equip your sales team to increase revenue sales. I've noticed when you have dispersed systems, it can be easy for sales teams members to be served with outdated information. Versioning in Content Hub and having that single source of truth really just ensures that your team is set up for the best success in delivering the most updated information to clients. Supporting education and training materials. So this can include uploading documents specifically for training internally, or you can even consider integrating with an LMS depending on your business needs, or if you're trying to onboard clients or authenticated members, that is definitely something possible with Content Hub DAM. You can also build custom pages or help pages. We've done that in the past where users can find documents specifically on how to upload assets, search, how to create a collection, how to download. It seems really basic. I will say that Content Hub has a great UI when you first get logged on, but it just helps, again, jumpstart that utilization from an internal standpoint when you have those resources available. Another use case we've seen is actually building out the brand portal within Content Hub. So again, with custom UI and building out pages, you can have a public-facing brand portal for internal and external counterparts, just helping people stay on brand. Most of the time, it's too hard for people to find correct colors, logos, and fonts and all in one central location, unless you're like a really big enterprise and you have it under control. So just, again, having that one central location really, really helps. And then DAM and AI. So Content Hub DAM is already powered by Microsoft services that drives image and video analysis. So it'll automatically tag those asset types for you. So you're not having to manually tag, which just improves your search within Content Hub. It'll also scan documents to pick up on keywords that might be relevant to surface the document in Content Hub. It does not do that when you deliver outside of Content Hub, only within the platform itself. But you can really take this step one step further and just integrate with AI to continue to improve user search experience within the platform itself. I have heard whispers that this is on the Content Hub DAM roadmap for Sitecore. I haven't found much information on it quite yet, but with ChatGPT really obviously growing, more and more every single day. I definitely see that'll be integrated in the near future. And that is all for me.
That was really great. Does anyone have any questions, Tiffany?
Yes. Thank you, Tiffany, for this wonderful presentation. For those of you who've been here, I want to emphasize what you just heard was the whole strategy for your company, like the entire strategy for your enterprise on implementing Content Hub with use cases, with everything. Super impressive. The question I actually have is related to DRM. So could you please just at high level share the features of DRM with Content Hub done? What can we do?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah, it's about DRM, digital rights management, with Content Hub done.
Yeah, so digital rights management, right out of the box, it really helps secure assets based on media type, locale, and usage rights. So you can build out contracts and profiles to help secure that. The great news is it's super flexible, so you can even extend that out to other metadata and entity fields that you have. So if you have certain brands or products and those things need to be secured just based on those specific use cases, DRM can help secure that. You have also your complex strategy rights that if you always need an asset to be requested to download, you can make that happen in Content Hub right out of the box. It does not take a big lift to enable the DRM feature. So I think the big two benefits you have from there is that improved governance that we talked about, and it goes into that reduced cost. If you have really strict compliance rights or contracts with certain photographers or designers, you're making sure you're staying with those in those bounds and just avoiding any legal fees or suits that you might see from that standpoint.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I second what Martin said. Tiffany, presentation is remarkable. I think this is, and there's so much value in these slides. It's so frequently overlooked, but I think this is truly what's needed to get the value out of the platform, to be successful with the platform. A lot of the times what we see on our side too, it's you may implement the platform. You may do the best as an implementation partner, the best UI, the best usability, the best, whatever, fit the requirements. Train the stakeholders. But then the thing still falls over because the system for it hasn't been created. The change management hasn't happened. The right people, the right roles haven't been created. The race hasn't been set up. Even things like we had on the slides is just simply every month, just check on the updates, check on the new features, or the regular cadence for those types of things, getting feedback. A lot of times when things like Content Hub get implemented, the immediate pains get addressed. But sometimes stakeholders don't even realize what they're missing until they know of those things, until they see what's available.
Exactly.
So it's the unknown unknowns that deliver a lot of value in the long run across the organization. I think this is super incredible. I honestly can't wait to post this online. Thank you so much.
I want to say that everything is recorded, so I am not the first time listening to this presentation, and I got lots of new stuff, even despite after watching it internally. There's basically, it's very compressed with the knowledge and the whole strategy, all the processes, everything is just done in slightly above than half an hour. So like you probably would want to look this through again and again, especially if you are dealing with Content Hub and especially if you are at leadership level, because there's lots of things you need to implement earlier rather than later.
Certainly.
Thank you very much, Tiffany. It's very impressive.
Thank you.
Well, Martin, you have a high bar to follow.
Oh, yeah. My presentation is also well compressed with the knowledge. That would be about Exam Cloud. And yes, one of the things from my point of view about Content Hub DAM, I don't want to sound like a man with the hammer in one arm, having the nails in the other, like everything becomes a nail. But for me, obviously, it's integration with XM Cloud. And I'm glad to say that it comes out of the box. You need to enable it in configuration, but both base image and your cloud portal have it. So I'll probably take the bar from Tiffany and will share my part of things. Give me a second. Do you see my screen?
Yes, we do.
Yes.
Yep.
This is my SUGCON presentation I did at in Malaga, Spain. I do skip a lot of theoretical part just to be fast forward because I want you to show more on demo, and I want to do some stunts with XM Cloud, which probably would not be much welcomed by the development team because they are used undocumented features or undocumented things, but it's still, let's make fun out of it, all right? So what is XM Cloud? XM Cloud is enterprise CMS. It is cloud native. It's Jamstack ready. Every XM Cloud comes with Experience Edge included into this subscription. So you always have it. It has personalization and real-time analytics tool built in coming out of the box. Why would you implement it? Why would you choose XM Cloud? First of all, because you don't have no platform upgrades any longer. And this is the biggest pain of Sitecore. Cost of ownership is doing upgrades. They are costly and they block your development and content team from being productive. And it's quite expensive, so you don't want to have it. It's better to spend this time for something more meaningful. The changes you introduced to the website are coming with the ease. And that is because headless architecture allows you to make things in parallel. So there's no such a thing when you do your front end first, you then pass it to backend developer. No, everything is working in parallel. Another is questionable, but I still have to tell it. There is no more bottleneck caused by a small decreasing pool of legacy CMS experts, mainly us. Any good front-end developer can do this work for you. And of course, it comes with actual reduction of operational costs because we don't have to care lots of things. This is fully SaaS solution. You can save on DevOps, you can save on SREs, and lots of other things. So Cloud Portal comes with a numerous set of applications, and I would name just a few of them. We have Sites, which is a multi-site and multi-language deployment tool. If you have applet with Horizon Intent 2, you will immediately recognize the user interface of Pages application. And I want to emphasize it was done with a great attention to the minor details, with a pleasant animation, many transitions, all that of premium experience feeling. It does automatically saves everything, so there's no save button. It also has support for multiple websites, which you select from drop-downs. And there is also something like extensibility framework, which is supposed to come at a later stage, and that will cover our advanced integration scenarios with this application. And there is a fun fact about the Pages. It is a separate cloud application, which is totally standalone. But under the hood, it still uses Experience Editor engine within an iframes. So that actually making it possible rendering and editing custom field types. So if we open Pages in DevTools, we will see that. The key feature of SaaS offering is that you don't need to upgrade your system. Everything is done for you automatically. You can identify new changes by seeing log records in your update app, or occasionally from spotting out a new version that is in place. I want to add that Sitecore is using semantic versioning for XM Cloud, and that affects both the kernel, and that affects both like NuGet packages and the dependencies. So we have two types of releases. We have updates and upgrades. What is the difference? Update releases, they include new feature and bug fixes. They are non-breaking for customer XM implementation. These can be automatically deployed to customer project by Sitecore team, and such releases may be quite often. On the opposite, upgrade releases, they still include new feature and bug fixes, but this may introduce changes to XM that require customer or partner for intervention to modify customizations. And Sitecore will introduce this type of changes at the last resort.
Martin, do we know how infrequent is infrequent?
Infrequent is maybe once per quarter, maybe less. It never happened to me yet. I got only updates. I didn't have any upgrades. What I want to say is not something that is coming to you automatically. This is, you need to rebuild in order to get this change. So basically, they did introduce the change, but until you rebuild, the base image in the Kubernetes with these changes will not get picked. So you need to trigger that yourself. That's the primary difference. But if you're taking about updates, you just simply see a note in this interface. Like, I scroll back, and like you see, we have February 8th, February 7th. These are updates done automatically. So before talking about licensing, it's important to understand how the SaaS offering is structured. XM Cloud hosting platform includes the concept of organizations, projects, environments, and each XM Cloud license comes with the amount of each. You may have specific environments, and your account manager will provide your license covering exactly your requirements. Organization in these terms is the equivalent of XM Cloud subscription. So you may get a default sandbox, which has 2 projects and 3 environments per each project, which will be 1 production and 2 non-production, which are typically used for like development, staging, testing, or other purposes. Coming back to the licensing model, it is similar to a subscription license, and its cost model was simplified very much so that it's based on traffic and the consumption. Also, it was mentioning that for local containerized development, you must possess a valid license file. And the one you have from your partner works pretty well there. Unfortunately, nothing on earth is ideal. Sorry, guys, I missed the slide. No, that's it. Unfortunately, nothing on earth is ideal, especially on its early days. XM Cloud has some limitations yet. Mostly these are caused by the architectural changes, and team is working hard on fitting them into a composable world. For example, we don't have support for headless form yet. It was promised to us at SUGCON, but not there. With media library, you can serve maximum 50 megabytes per item through Experience Edge. And this is the actual reason to leverage some DIM, for example, Content Hub DIM, we just spoke previously. Speaking about search, there's no more built-in search, at least the one we're using for customer sites. So you need to leverage on external solution like Sitecore Search or Golia. It is single region offering, which means you have to choose between one of the 5 geographical locations. And I want to highlight that it's only valid for your CM instance, because Experience Edge is geographically distributed. And if you do your head application, let's say with Vercel, it's also geographically distributed. So the content served from Edge to your head application goes pretty fast. And this single region limitation is only related to your CM. So you typically locate it in the region close to your majority of editors. Okay, so there is no support for a login fence protected content, at least for now. Saying that, I mean the websites where you need to log in order to see protected pages. Of course, you can implement that by yourself, but that whole logic comes to your Next.js HUD application, and you have to implement things yourself. Another thing is that no custom models or packages installation is possible in the way we used to do that by uploading zip archive. You have to approach it differently with some alteration of init containers, or the best way is by referencing NuGet packages for your customization project. Now let's talk about XM Cloud architecture in more details. So what is XM Cloud from architectural point is CM running a cloud that has experience edge for content delivery where you publish your items. It has several front-end as a service editing tools, which we talk through: sites, pages, components. It also has cloud deployment application, which is pretty strong, and I very like it. XM Cloud has headless SXA with Sitecore Next.js SDK. So Next.js is the first class citizen for headless SXA, and headless SXA is built in each XM Cloud offering. It also has integration with Content Hub, DIM, and CMP. It's out of the box, but you need to enable it. And as I mentioned, it's a single region with 5 potential options. A headless architecture consists of backend with a layer of services and APIs, and a front-end client user-facing application. This application, also known as a presentation layer, retrieves the data from your CMS through the API endpoints and use the data to populate or hydrate the markup which it generates. So without having CD servers any longer, there is no place to execute HTTP request pipeline extensions. Experience Edge provides just a flat raw published data in a headless way, so there is no place to apply this logic. So in cases when you need to make changes into request, what would you do? So the answer is quite obvious. The only place you have to do that is your HUD application. That's where you change your request. And luckily, Vercel supports all the life cycles for doing that. Webhook framework is a composable way of implementing an event model between the SaaS systems. So previously in monolithic Sitecore, you had to handle events with a custom C# code, which was complicated, took time, and required to rebuild and redeploy application, which also caused Apple recycle. You obviously cannot do that between external systems, most of which have been written with the different languages. So instead, this system communicates events with HTTP calls, which are also known as webhooks, passing a payload of important information for this event which happened. It also supports authentication, and at the destination, it passes the whole payload of data around the event which happened, so you can extract all the possible data. And the interesting thing that you configure it with old good rules engine. But of course, you can create webhooks not only manually, but with admin REST API. And there is quite a use case for webhooks. You can set a webhook on publish M to use dynamic page regeneration to reduce the number of calls directly to Edge. Some folks think that you require Edge for GraphQL queries at all, but what Edge is doing is placing the GraphQL endpoint in a CDN. We don't have neither content delivery service any longer, nor we can publish to the web database. we publish content to experience Edge instead. The important moment is that Edge Connector publishes a static snapshot of the layout service output for an item at the time of publishing. So things like language fallbacks, they are applied at publish time. There is also no site context or similar runtime abstraction, which we had before with XAMXP platforms. You are not able to adjust GraphQL endpoints with pipelines for extra features, which you could do previously with XP or XM platforms. In order to access Edge, you need to have Edge token, which is also GraphQL API. And there is a common misunderstanding about that content published to experience Edge becomes unprotected. So in fact, when you publish to Edge, that is not equal to making content publicly exposed. No one can access your content without providing valid Edge token, which you typically configure as this API key parameter for your environment. As I mentioned previously, API key should never be shared publicly by making such direct calls directly from JavaScript code, which runs in a client browser. Therefore, it's exposing your secrets. And there is another fun fact about this API key. You can base 64 decode your API key, and it would have your tenant name inside of it. Interesting fact about Edge is that it has its own webhooks, which you can leverage. There's something called Edge CLI coming for accessing and managing the Edge. So we won't have XM Cloud CLI, we also have Edge CLI as well. Publishing to Edge is expensive operation, so you would consider batching. And with Experience Edge, you can do search just against the Edge itself. So what you can do is you can do exact field value match, you can do equal, not equal, you can do contains, non-contains, both ways of ordering field names, pagination, logical, and or. So quite a basic set of things, but still much better than nothing. With XP platform, we used to have an identity server. However, that one is no longer useful in a genuine composable world. Sidecore had to rethink the authentication approach, and they implemented a new unified identity system so that it offers single sign-on across eligible application of the composable DXP family. Many people ask about integration with their providers. So the good news is that it will support OpenID-based identity providers, and therefore it will support Azure AD. SAML providers will be added later. It's also worth mentioning content security. Previously, Sidecore took security setting from the items and validated it at content delivery while building the pages. Now, without content delivery, your content gets published flat to Edge. So it becomes a duty of your head application to respect these permissions. You can still pass them as metadata with your content, but now you need to implement that. And I actually would expect things like that gets implemented by SDK. So likely we will see something fixing that issue in the future. So let's look what we have inherited from XP. We got old good media library. Now it's powered by Azure Blob Storage. But as I said previously, Edge CDN has a limit of 50 megabytes per media item. We also have Workbox with workflows, as before. We have both editors, content, and experience, localization, language fallbacks, all that is still with us. We do have PowerShell extension. However, you need to enable them. They are disabled by default. We have access management for users, roles, etc. But again, this is rudimental interface, which is not something that Experience Edge supports. So you have to implement things at your head application. We also have control panel, which I will show in demo, some use case with it. And we have Sidecore CLI. And Sidepost CLI became much more important tool that we used to have it with XP platforms for mostly serialization. Sadly or not, but many XDB features become redundant in this new composable architecture. So everything that we have behind XConnect, XDB, things like EXM, FXM, Path Analyzer, Tracker, Experience Profile, of course, with List Manager, marketing automation, reporting, processing, all that has gone. We also have to say goodbye to everything that relies on content delivery. So namely, that is MVC renderings. We have to abandon forms, non-headless SXA, custom search indexes. Publishing service obviously goes off. And there are some other things like identity server, device detection, TTS. And I confirm that data exchange framework is not supported any longer. But there is a better tool which you can use as the replacement for data exchange framework. Saying better, I mean, it's composable. So XM Cloud doesn't have CD boxes any longer. HTTP request pipeline extensions running on content deliveries are no longer supported. And if you need to do these changes, you need to make this on a client app hosting. And I want to assure that Vercel fully supports the whole life cycle through its serverless function. I will explain that just a bit later. Speaking about search, if customers want to use a Solr-based solution, if they insist on doing that, they could set up and configure and host their own Solr solution. So they can send content to Solr and use it from their head application. So it's not coming from content delivery. Now head is in charge of that. But that requires extra effort. It's still an option. But the most simple solution would be running search-based queries directly from Experience Edge endpoints, and you can call that from your head application. Rendering host. This is a familiar concept known from headless site code development. But with XM Cloud, we extend terminology with rendering and editing host. XM Cloud has a built-in rendering host that works with GSS-based websites because it uses Node.js. So, for example, it would not work with headless SP.NET Core renderings. I recently blogged about how to pair those two in a single container environment. So in that case, you would have your headless SP.NET site running on Linux containers and taking data from XM Cloud. But in that case, you would have to provide rendering host yourself, and you need to connect your rendering host to XM Cloud. Generally, it's a good practice to have one rendering host per client site. And this is something you normally would specify at xmcloud.build.json file. And that's where you can choose between GSS and SXA types, which in fact are responsible for provisioning and scaffolding. When choosing hosting, everyone would name Vercel at first place. But the question is, why Vercel? Okay, Vercel makes it easy to deploy your Next.js application with the minimal configuration and setup required. It supports serverless functions, which can be used to create API endpoints or handle backend logic for your Next.js application. It provides fast and global CDN, which ensures that your Next.js application is delivered quickly to users around the world. Vercel can automatically scale your Next.js application to handle spikes in traffic, ensuring that your application remains available and responsive. It provides collaboration tools for developers to work together on Next.js application, making it much easier to manage and deploy some complex applications. There is a bit of confusion on the terminology and mostly around edge functions, which are not equal to edge middleware. And the main difference is that edge functions run after the cache. In the previous version, the middleware was deployed to Vercel as edge function, but now it is edge middleware. That's the right terminology. Middleware code executes before a request. Based on the request, you can modify the response, and because it runs before the cache, using middleware is an effective way of providing personalization to statically generated content. Depending on the incoming request, you can execute custom logic, you can rewrite, redirect, add headers, and do pretty more. Next, speaking about the data fetching strategies. I would advise not to use server-side renderings, which in fact defeats the point of Next.js being a static generator. Using static side generator is a better option. If you use get server-side, if you use this call in a single component, the whole page will be server-side rendering, and you cannot mix SSG with SSR on the same page. SSG doesn't make that your page is non-interactive. It makes the markup reaching the browser as soon as possible with all the assets it needs. And after that, it gets content and render. This is actually to affect the, as I remember, it's like time to first paint. I think that's the metric that Lighthouse uses for measuring where the whole DOM is rendered. And that in turn affects your COR. So your page gets your browser faster, you get smaller time to first paint, and then you get the whole content you need. There are not many cases when you would like to use SSR, and you can do pretty everything with SSG. Next.js fully supports serverless API functions, so that's not a problem. Basically, it simply requires different way of thinking. You have to abstract from a server-side way of doing things like we did with MVC, because today it's headless, it's serverless, and Next.js is a full stack framework. It's not just a front end. Of course, you don't have to use Vercel. You can use other hosting options. For example, you can benefit from using Next.js middleware with Netlify, and I saw in the recent time they're actively pushing on their compatibility with Sidecore. I know people using Azure Static Web Apps for that. And of course, you can build your own Jamstack hosting. Nothing stops you from doing that. So how do we do personalization with XMCloud? A slim version of Sidecore Personalize comes built into Pages interface of XMCloud to allow for basic event personalization. This is a new way of doing out-of-the-box personalization. We have a limited set of mostly session-based rules, such as day of the week, visitor's country, operation system, or visitor's current device. However, there is no way how you can manage built-in personalized tenant directly from your XMCloud interface. Also, checking carefully, you can still find some rules that are based on historical data. For example, there is a history-based rule, which is the number of page views within a past number of days, where you can use maximum 30 days. Of course, once you enable full Sidecore Personalize, you will get a set of tools. It will expand the functionality to a wider range of options. And there's difference to XP. Unlike XP, where you would personalize each component individually, in XMCloud, we create page variants to achieve that, so that we can define the audience that will be exposed to that page variant. That change itself comes because of Experience Edge storing your content flat with all the page variants. The actual personalization is happening in the middleware of your Next.js application. If you use the headless SXA based with Next.js templates, everything comes out of the box for you. Of course, you're not limited to Next.js. You can use other options, but you would have to implement that personalization logic yourself. Sidecore comes up with the Next.js Personalize add-on, which includes Next.js middleware plugin. React component for page view events using Sitecore Engage SDK. There's also a page props factory plugin and other bits such as additional environmental variables. Analyze is another great embedded tool powered by page level analytics. Pages that are built with Pages application have embedded tracking tag. Therefore, analytics become automatically available. Just out of the box, it will empower you to see the browser details, operation system, the source of visit, the pages like first page, entry page, top page, visits per country, source visits, or visits by the time of the day. Similar to the previous example of personalized, the analytics system is now built on top of Sitecore CDP. Previously, all the analytics was taken out from Sitecore XDB, and without having that in SaaS offering, the only option for providing built-in analytics and personalization was to rely on CDP and personalize in some way. Now we reach the most interesting section, at least at my point. What would be developer experience working with XM Cloud? For local development, Sitecore provides you with containers running on Windows-based environment, and you need to have a valid license to run it. Unfortunately, no LTC 2022 support images yet. It ships only with LTC 2019 images, so unfortunately we're stuck with Hyper-V isolation on the client OS like Windows 10 or Windows 11. So once you run it, you may see a list of containers like I see here on the screen. It's pretty similar to what you can find with the classical XM platform. Custom images provided by clients are not supported. So you cannot modify your CM Docker file. No, this will simply get ignored, and that's done for the safety of the builds. That's how automatic upgrades become and updates become possible. You can still debug your CM instance in Visual Studio as you normally do by finding the CM container and attaching to IS process inside of it. And luckily you will see yellow breakpoint hit. You don't have any longer familiar package-based modules, so there's a different way of handling that. You do have Content Hub connector out of the box. And I also see that we have helpful image with which is called Sitecore Docker Tools. We have it for Sitecore platforms and container, but lots of valuable things we may find in this image, like XDC transforms, entry points, scripts, patches, all of that. Another important container here is traffic. This is the one that accepts and distributes external requests. Traffic ideally fits a containerized environment as it relies on the file-based certificates located at the map volume folder. One of the most frequent errors which you experience with traffic is when you're trying to set it up is basically that you have another web server or something that occupies port 80, preventing traffic from running and showing up some unknown errors. So if you run traffic if you run XM Cloud in containerized environment, make sure you don't have port 80 and port 443 occupied. So what is traffic? It's load balancer. It naturally fits containers. It also offloads SSL, and it has rules-based configuration rules traffic, which you configure again in the same mapped volume folder. Sitecore CLI is much more important tool with XM Cloud. This is the only dependence of XM Cloud, and it works even on Linux because it's done with .NET Core, and it allows you to control any instance deployed to XM Cloud. You can even install it in a lightweight Azure Functions on Linux container and run something like CLI as a service. In order to work with XM Cloud, you need to have .NET 6. Obviously, the CLI version should be 5.0 or later, and you have to get XM Cloud plugin installed. With CLI, you can do lots of valuable things. You can do authentication in both interactive and non-interactive mode. You can provision environments, so the whole environment get provisioned by the single line command done from your CLI. You can publish to Edge. You can live watch and unload logs. You can promote between environments. And there's an important thing to mention that someone with the user level of permissions cannot use CLI for cloud operations because it requires admin rights. This is because it uses XM Cloud REST API, which user don't have access to. The only cloud command user can do is cloud environment connect command, which uses get ID API for specific environment where they do have access to, so that they can connect to environment, but they can do nothing else. And since you get connected as a user, you can use the normal non-cloud side core CLI commands like indexing, serialization, schema population, and etc. For non-interactive login, you have to provide client ID and client secret, which you obtain from automation client of your deploy app. And that enables a lot of integration scenarios, like you can serialize sitecore items on demand. You can combine that with webhooks, and you have do-it-yourself backup and version control into a Git repository in no time. And like lots of other scenarios you can do. It's all about your creativity. XM Cloud Starter Kit comes in a form of mono repository storing your head application, platform customization project, your serialization, a bunch of useful other tools. So let us look what we have in a typical XM Cloud solution. So have it open in XM Cloud. The first file has version and for XM Cloud and for CLI. Then this is interesting file, user.json. This is your authentication parameters are coming here. Things like client ID, authority, that's where your host is stored, and other important bits. So I will be using this file in my next demo. I will show you. Docker folder, we have Docker files that are used for building the images. We also have mapped volumes. Namely, this is traffic map folder with my certificates. So I have second level certificates and wildcard certificates cover the third level, but they don't cover fourth level. There is a config where I'm referencing the certificates, but you can do other rules here. Data is for storage your persistent data, similar to what you have in the platforms. Tools is something I created for myself for this repository that will be shown in the part of, as the sake of this demo. You do have Docker Compose and Docker Compose override for your local development, similarly to what it was in the platforms. And I use these both to integrate .NET rendering core into XM Cloud to work together. You also have up and down scripts as well as init, which run at the first time when you get this repository. There is a script for getting Edge token. Packages props is referencing your NuGet packages. And it's interesting to see that packages have changed their naming and they have changed their versioning. So it's now called sitecore.xmcloud.package name. That's my CLI. This is my XM Cloud plugin, which I mentioned. And probably the main important file is xmcloud.build.json. It has rendering host. You specify build targets. So typically, you should have just one solution file in your repository root, which I have here. but it will pick it up automatically. But if you have more than that or at different locations, you can still specify them here. You do XDT transforms as well. And that's the only way how you can modify web config. You can have some post actions here, like reindex, populate schema, and lots of other things. It's pretty much covered in the documentation. There are two ways of deploying application with XMCloud, whether you use XMCloud deploy app or if you use Sitecore CLI. As I said, XMCloud comes with an integrated deploy app, and it performs exactly what it's called for, deploying your solution using existing source code to XMCloud from a friendly graphical user interface as an interactive as an alternative to using CLI. And currently it supports only GitHub, but Azure DevOps is coming soon as well. At least I know the team is working on that. So after providing access to your GitHub account, you configure and choose the branch and the specific environment this branch deploys to, and if it's production or not. There is also an option to trigger an automatic deployment on each commit. So when you get commit or pull request to this branch, there will be deployment happening, picking up the changes. As I said, you must possess admin rights in order to perform these deployments. And basically that's it. You just click a button, deployment starts and make all the changes. CI/CD pipeline is totally built under the hood for you. So regardless of if you do manual deployment or if you are using deploy app, your items get deployed as item resources. This is a feature that has been with us for a while, since Sitecore 10.1, and it's aimed for providing out-of-the-box default items, but it carries out some implications. So once the item resource file is deployed, items from this file appear on a content tree as they were coming from database. Any changes to such item, they create a record in the database, and that actually will serve the data from this record. That will be your source of truth for item. And there is a principle called database wins, which may lead to some unpleasant collisions, like, for example, when you are modifying a SXA site and setting items details may change your host name, and then you need to revert back to your original state, which you cannot do that. Another thing to mind with item resources is that you cannot delete resource items themselves. And in order to get rid of them, you need to do redeployment so that an updated item resource file without that particular item gets deployed. And this is in some way inconvenient compared to serialization, where you can delete that particular item on your local system and just simply push serialization changes to the target. We do have PowerShell extension. It comes out of the box, but you need to enable it. You need to go to your environmental variable and set this variable to allow. Then you need to do redeploy. We also do have remoting, and this remoting works with both your local instance and cloud running environments. So with remoting or PowerShell, you can do pretty same things that you were able to do with your XPXM platforms. You can manage it fully. You can do all the operations against the items, security, indexes. You can run automations and execute the scenarios. You can upload. This one is interesting. With XMCloud, now you can use PowerShell to upload your configuration files to your file system running in the cloud, so that you don't need to do redeployment, which may take 10 to 20 minutes. But you get simply a pull recycle and you can test your changes that much quickly. And of course, you can do anything else that you would normally do with CM. So I think let's take a demo. Let's do a demo. Desktop, similar to what we have before. Go to PowerShell IC. PowerShell is enabled for me, and I will execute something interesting. What I will be doing now is I'm executing select query. This is at database level, just database select as normal against the master database that is running on my cloud instance. And that becomes possible because I'm importing invoke SQL common function. So let's see what it returns. Boom. So it returns all the items from my master database. And at this stage, I got a question to audience. Can anyone explain me why do I have 4 items here returned from my master DB? Any ideas?
Resource files.
Correct. And the reason is that basically everything out of the box is coming as resource files, and my deployment is coming also with resource files. So let's take a look at another instance. I'll probably show you it in a demo as well. Let's see what we have here. So we have play demo, basic. I see. So we have PowerShell console, which means I have access to file system. And that's what we see. These are item resources coming from the default XM Cloud provisioning. And this is what I deployed. All these 3 tenants, or now they called site collections, they are done here. So let's do a little bit crazy example. So we know that we don't have content delivery with XM Cloud, but rudimentally, we still have this. We do have web database. And I use it for some sort of stunt purposes. I'm using it like a stash. If you go to control panel here, it's loaded. You will find the familiar tool calling move an item to another database. And this is how you can move the content from master to web and other way around. Just simply from this built-in UI. And what is amazing about it, it includes all the versions, all the languages. So if I simply select whole content, I can move it from here. Let's say I can move the whole play site to web database, and it will be play in master. It will come under this path in web, and that will copy, and I can do it back. So I was asking about how can we do kind of backup strategies. I know that development team is working now on the UI, so that you can back up your databases that run in cloud and you can restore them lately just from UI. Not yet with us, but it's coming. But as for now, if I want to get a backup from my cloud database, what I have to do is I need to sync changes into my local. And then into my local, I will have access to my local database with SQL Server Management Studio, so that I can, let's say, back up this database, having the changes I want to back up, or I can restore some actual database and then move the changes back to XM Cloud. So not that much convenient. Let me show you something. So we are here. If I show you the web database, obviously it will be empty. So we see just the home item under the content. Let's go here. We still have this. Let's do what?
While we have a pause, is the PowerShell the only way to access the file structure?
Yes.
Okay.
As far as I know. Well, there is another trick how you can copy files from XM Cloud to your local. You can simply go and create a package as you did before, and it will make a zip and you include all the files you want to have locally, and then you download it.
That's a neat workaround.
There's also a good old File Explorer still in the core database.
It's not available out of the box, but if you know the path, yes, it's working with XM Cloud. I tested it.
Yep.
Nice.
Yeah, there's I'm not to plug a video, but I have one of the Friday best practices on the File Explorer of how to find it in the desktop.
Just don't tell Sidecar, right? Otherwise they might remove it.
Yeah. Well, you can butcher the instance. I mean, hopefully not the prod one, but if it so happens the dev environment gets, blows up, you can recreate it in 15 minutes or so. It's super fast.
Looks like it's all frozen for me. Do you guys follow what I'm trying to do? I copied the resource file from master into web. Yeah.
Yeah, you're trying to transfer quote unquote items, right?
Yeah. And I want to show that they will magically appear on the web database after I do that. But looks like everything got frozen for me for some reason.
So in essence, this item as a resource is essentially like a custom data provider that they edit.
Yes, that's how it's implemented through the data provider. I have forgotten the command to do up-pull recycle. Does someone remember? The PowerShell one. No.
Could you just do an IIS reset here?
I think no.
Recycle PowerShell.
Looks like we can't do that. No, we cannot.
What is the purpose of the web database now? Is that a representation of what's been published to Experience Edge?
It will get removed in future versions, and you won't be able to use it, but it's rudimental. What I use it for, before there's no backup tools, I simply use it as a stash. Here is it. That's the command. That's the command. Obviously, it became non-responsive after I click it. So, meanwhile, I'll talk you through another thing that I want to demo. And that's one of the best tools to work with Exam Cloud. It's called Authoring and Management GraphQL API. And you can do pretty everything with this API for managing content and cloud environment itself by making GraphQL calls. So this API does not currently support subscriptions. You can only do queries, computations, and you need to enable it from environmental variable. This is variable which you need to set to true. Once you do that and redeploy, you will be able to use it. So in order to make it work, you need to obtain JavaScript web token first by using client ID and client secret. Then with this JWT, what you can do, you will request a URL that you'll be using for, in my case, I want to upload a media item. So with that URL, I will be able to upload an item. If you simply want to create a textual non-media item, it's just one call from there. And once I get this URL for uploading media item, I will call another API attaching the file itself and providing both this JWT and URL. And what I do afterwards, basically, I set up a webhook. I set up a webhook for a specific folder. So if something gets uploaded to that folder, I am catching a webhook. So that's what I will show you now in a demo. But let's get back to this. And let's take a look at our web database.
Martin, while you're pulling that up, question from Varga. So you could potentially wipe the instance and bootstrap from files? I'm assuming that's probably content.
If you can rephrase, please. So look at that. I'm on a web database, so I copied resource file, and I get this play website with everything here. You see what happened? But it's more like for investigation purposes. You won't benefit from doing this operation anyway. So let's talk about GraphQL API. Went back to my instance.
Yeah, Martin, I was just curious if you could, if something happened to your, I'm not sure if you mentioned it before, if something happened to your environment, you could potentially just bootstrap from those resource files?
You do have your source code, and basically you should keep your source code in such a status that if something happens, you can redeploy. But okay. I believe something like slots would be available there as well. I don't see actually some use case for that, because if something happens with the region where it's kept, well, it's a problem. Again, it will not affect your client running website. So all these updates, upgrades, all the things, even disaster if happens at the place of your data center, it will not affect your client websites because they're running on your head API, which is geographically distributed, for example, by Vercel, and it pulls the data out of Experience Edge, which is also geographically distributed CDN.
Right, correct. Right, thanks.
Okay. So let's get to browser. Now we'll explain what I want to do. It's a little bit slow after I pull recycle. All right. I have this folder, default website. I want to use GraphQL Author and API to upload a media item directly into this folder. Then I have a webhook. I call it add media. And what I'm doing is I am handling this event item edit. You can do lots of events around publishing, around item lifecycle. Let me expand it for you. In my case, I chose item edit. And when this event happens, I have rules engine where I create condition where the item path starts with site core media library default website, which is this folder. I will pull this URL. And this URL is basically request bin is a tool that is catching your webhooks and exposes what you have there. So let's see. I don't have anything here in this area, so let's see how it works. And yes, you see item edit, clone, copied, deleted, logged, pretty everything about item lifecycle, and lots of things around publishing as well. So the item gets updated to this folder.
Did we lose you? Oh, there we
I
go.
apologize, my computer is a little bit slow. So what I'm going to do is I have a file on my file system. This is a destination where I want to upload it. This is my XM Cloud instance. That's my environment. Environment is equivalent of instance. So first of all, I will obtain JWT by the script I created. Then with that, I will get this URL, and then I will upload the media. And you see, I'm using user JSON. I have client ID, client secret, everything taken from this file, so there's no user interaction. It's all there. Automation client parameters are stored there. Okay, let's run it. Boom. So that's an ID of the item which I created, name, and a path. Let's refresh this folder. And here's my item. And I also see that webhook has been triggered. And let's click it. So this is all the information around the item. And the whole of useful payload we can find here. So this is the item name, this is the item ID, everything that I uploaded. And this is ID of the webhook that triggered. So you have also that as well. And I'll probably run another demo here for remoting. So I want to prove you that remoting works. I get a script here, which will take this item and make the call to remote instance. This is the same iRemote instance. I have PowerShell remote enabled, and it will show me the fields of that item. Basically, this is the code which it will run on the remote context. So now it connects to cloud instance, and boom, here are all the fields. This is a home item. It has all the text and title with these two basic default values, and the rest are coming from standard values. The interesting part of it is this call gets executed in the context of this user. So I had to create this user, and I also had to provide the secret for that particular user for that particular instance. So that was it. Let's talk about development tips and tricks. So what you have is you get your old good SiteCore admin folder, and you get access to all your tools. On the screenshot right-hand side, I made a comparison between tools coming into TAN3 exam platform and those we have with exam cloud. So the difference is that there are two new files, clean database. I believe that one is specifically for sorting out item and resource trap problem. And there's also PowerShell.aspx, which is in fact a shell. It's same PowerShell that allows executing the code just from this, from this page. Basically, I have it here. This is how it looks like. And of course, it's not enabled by default. You need to create a file under SiteCore shell folder or somewhere under SiteCore folder. I don't remember exact path, but the file enabled with no extension. And if there is a file in this folder, you will be able to run it here. Boom. All the files in this directory. So you have everything that you have in your PowerShell running on this instance. So a good example, I need to probably show you something else with PowerShell. If I go here and I want to try to delete the file, webconfig. I won't be able to, because everything at this level is not accessible for the context of PowerShell extension. So I can delete files underneath. I can delete configs. I can delete everything on the SiteCore folder, but I cannot delete or in some way modify that config. There's no enough permissions. So if you want to do that type of operation, what you should do is you need to do XDD transforms. And SiteCore Docker tools, they have wonderful scripts for doing exactly that. And I also have in this repository, I also have samples of transform and web config. So you cannot modify it directly, but you can modify it from transform because the deploy tool has enough permissions. So the trick with web database, I showed you that you still have it. It's not recommended to use it. Officially, it will get removed sooner or later, but it's still like for fun purposes, you can do that. I also explained you how you can backup restore your cloud run databases by pulling them to your local stuff. And I also mentioned that you can get out files from your cloud instance by simply packaging and unloading them. That's it. Migration. So when it comes to migration, you have basically two options. It all depends on the status of your site you want to migrate. It can be headless, it can be non-headless, for example, MVC. So when it comes to headless websites, you will come across this set of actions. There will be much more than that, but at least this you will need to do. So you need to have CLI of version 5 on your references change from Sitecore to sitecore.xmcloud. Also, NuGet packages have different names and versioning. There is new important file, xmcloud build.json, which I spoke and showed earlier. That one that does transforms, that one that does set up rendering host and lots of other useful things. You can have one solution file at the root, unless you specify from the above file. You won't be able to change CM Docker files. It will get simply ignored. If you have any customization, just move it to your platform. Probably get back to this Visual Studio code. So under source folder, I have 3 child folders. This is my rendering host, SXA starter. This is my serialization, and platform is basically like old good .NET framework application, which was our site in the previous slide, but now it's only served for customizations. For example, one customization I wanted to bring to the my cloud instance was I would like to introduce 2 buttons for expand and collapse my content editor sections. So what I've done for that, I took a file, content editor.js file, and it also works on the platforms. And I added 2 JavaScript at the end that actually do this expand and collapse button and handle these calls. So I included this file under sitecore/shell applications content manager folder. So this is what gets mapped to your XM Cloud. And I run the deployment. So deployment went well. And here's what I've got. These 2 wonderful buttons. Expand all, collapse all. And this is one example of what you can do for your customizations, but of course, much more. You can modify pipelines as you did before. Of course, these pipelines of CM instance, not your CD, which you don't have any longer. And like lots of other things are available. Right, so we have this role-based configuration, which typically you define in web config. So previously you had content management, content delivery. On your local, you had standalone. You had also indexing, processing. Now there is only one single role called XM Cloud and nothing else. Also need to remove the modules that are part of the base image, like SXA, PowerShell extension, all the things. This is, you get a new name for your image, sitecore-xmcloud-cm. So this is your CM images that you use for local development. If you used GraphQL customization pipelines, these are obviously not supported with Experience Edge, so you need to get rid of them and rewrite your queries and rewrite your code application. And when you do migration, it's better to make it on a page-by-page approach, and so that you can handle the routing and set it up by page. At a high scale, you can leverage things like Azure front door and other bits. Like it's all your creativity how to set it up. So you can do things progressively. And of course, as a great tip, consider using official starter kit for your upgraded solution, because it will have lots of things. And like the first that comes into my mind is you can get your legacy GSS application and wrap it into SXA tenant or site collection as it's called now, so that it can benefit from SXA features. So when it comes to MVC solution, things are not that straightforward. So here you have two potential ways what you can do. So first of all, you need to upgrade your existing solution to the latest 10.3. If it's XP, you need to convert it to XAMPP and remove all XDB assets. You may leverage Sitecore Connect for migrating stuff from XDB to CDP, but that's a totally separate exercise for your production data. You need to convert your sites to headless. And after all of that, you need to follow the steps from the previous slide, which I demonstrated. That is possible if you have an embassy site with simple presentation and little business logic. In case if you have a lot of business logic, in that case, I would recommend you leverage Vanilla XM Cloud Starter Kit, and you will have to rewrite all your UI components with JSX and React. The whole business logic gets also reworked to a headless app, but in that case, you will benefit from many of highly desired SXA features. You don't leave any technical debt behind yourself, but of course, that's a lot of effort. The good news, you can do that progressively. We spoke a lot about SXA, and SXA has been reconsidered and seriously reworked prior to this upgrade, and that is for both 10.3 platforms and for XM Cloud. XM Cloud, as being natively headless platform, gets headless subset of SXA right out of the box. It allows developers building and deploying headless websites using XM Cloud, taking advantage of all the known existing SXA features such as page layouts, partial layouts, and especially rendering variants. So why would I use SXA? I would rephrase that, why you wouldn't use it. There is no any advantage of not using SXA, and even if you have existing GSS website, you can bring it to your XM Cloud instance and still benefit from SXA. It's built into every XM Cloud out of the box, so there's no problems with support further ahead. It has multi-site capabilities. You have custom link provider for each website. You can share resources in different ways. SEO is very much impressive. Sitemaps, robots, redirects, error handlings. If any of you have tried to implement sitemap with Experience Edge on a classical headless application without SXA, even if that is Next.js, you will find the pain of doing that. So now it's very much configurable from your SXA, and there is a sitemap item under the settings which allow you to configure sitemap in a very flexible way. You do have page and partial designs, a good concept which allows you separating presentation from the content. So the page structure, like headers, footers, they will not be editable when someone edits the page. The editors will only be able to modify the content with Experience Editor, and if they need to change page and partial design, they need to go and change that explicitly, which of course is helpful because it affects the whole website. So you can do the change for all of the pages. We have page branches, and we have layouts, standard values per each website. Rendering variants, one of the strongest features of SXA, is there with us, but it's done now differently. Lots of site scaffolding tools for creating and cloning website. Component library is still there, but it's limited to very basic components. We still have advanced automation and scripting with PowerShell, which is underneath each SXA instance. And with this version, we finally get support for grid and styling. So both Bootstrap and Tailwind support is there. Bootstrap is actually 4, 5, all these versions. Right, so what we have, what's gone and what we have. Experience editor and pages, both supported. Grids and styles, as I said, supported. Pages, partial layouts, rendered variants, page branches, all that is there. Site templates is new feature that allows you cloning. SEO stuff, error pages, cross-site sharing. By the way, very powerful cross-site sharing is all there. I want to mention that sitemaps, they are using sitemap item crawler, and ironically, they get served through Edge as a media item. So that's funny to know. What is gone from headless SXA? In XMCloud, obviously MVC renderings, search-related features, snippets, theming, and creative exchange. So most of the things are relevant to content delivery, which we don't have any longer. Previously, it was a little bit difficult, but SXA team made a big effort to get compatibility out of the box for mixing SXA and non-SXA assets. So what you can do, you can host SXA and non-SXA websites within a single Sitecore instance. So no media handlers conflicts, no things like that. It will just work. You can also put a non-SXA site to an SXA site collection, or which we call tenant in previous versions. Pages that are built with SXA can contain non-SXA components, but obviously this will not benefit from SXA concepts like grids and styles. But the reverse, when SXA components on non-SXA page will not work because of this SXA nature of these SXA components. SXA has tools for creating the blueprint of the entire site. The starter template from XMCloud is a good example of the site template. It has SXA headless components and the rest of assets to assist you of scaffolding website. There is also an automation to clone existing sites. And the way it works, clone makes exact copy of the images of the content and all the assets your original site has. So the newly derived site operates exactly as the original, with the only difference that it will run under different host name. And of course, my favorite, rendering variants. This is one of the key concepts of SXA, and it is for a reason. That allows to reduce the amount of renderings which have a similar functionality, and it also improves the code and editing experience. The good news is that rendering variants remain with us, but in a slightly changed way. So previously with Velocity or Scriven, variants had the actual snippets that were merged at content delivery. Now without content delivery, variant logic moved to your head application. And now it's only referenced by a name. So here on the screen, you can see promo tier 6 component, which has two exports. You see this default and you see with text. So each of them represents a rendering variant. So with the previous experience editors, you now can switch like you've done before, simply by drop down, and that will pick up either of these snippets. And this approach, it allows Next or React developers changing the code without any interaction with the backend developers, which I find it pretty helpful. Let's take a look. So this is one rendering variant. This is another. They also do have shared part of logic, which showed when it's empty. And the interesting part is there. This is interface. This is actually TypeScript. So it allows you to have a strongly typing just within your GSX. That's why it's called tier 6, TypeScript GSX. And that's actually pretty everything I have so far. I would recommend following my blog. And this starter kit I demonstrated, I will upload it to my GitHub under XMCloud name, so you can benefit from the tools I demonstrated. Thank you very much.